Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Identity Love Podcast, episode 28. I'm Tracy Konani, and I am a life coach and identity specialist for folks who have lost themselves in their relationship and in their lives and do not know how to be themselves anymore. And so what I do is I help you to not only find and be yourself, but to be yourself in a way that you actually love and enjoy and feel attractive being, so you can be the partner that you've always wanted to be and the version of yourself that you just naturally have self-love for and self-respect and self-worth. So I am here to help you ultimately understand yourself more, to understand yourself better, because what else is love than understanding? And so many of us are going through our lives knowing more about our partners and our relationships than ourselves. We understand, or we feel like we understand, our partners more than we do what's going on with ourselves. Or we think that what's going on with ourselves doesn't even matter. But when we're starting to find our own identity and find our self-love, we have to understand that this is important for us to know what is going on with us and to pay attention and give attention, which is love, right, to ourselves. And so I'm here to help you see the things that we often struggle to see within ourselves, because we are ourselves. And so it is difficult to see certain things clearly because we are so close to our own habits and our own beliefs and our own inner problems. And we are not able to see it clearly because we're so up close to it. And so that's what I do as a coach, is to help you to see the things that you cannot see and to give you an understanding and understand why you are feeling and behaving the way that you are. And then you can change it so much easier because you are finally being able to see the things that you've been struggling to see. Oftentimes, one of the things that my clients struggle to see, and I struggled with this as well, this is why I know it so well, is that they are unknowingly living in fear of what they do not want to be. They subconsciously, whether they are aware of it or not, usually they're not aware of it, they are going through their lives thinking about a certain type of human that we do not want to be. And we try at all costs to do nothing remotely close to what we think this type of human will do or be like or act like. And so we are not aware that we are living in fear of what we do not want to be. And so I talked about this in one of the earlier episodes, episode 4. Check it out if you want to hear all the details. But from a young age, I had this idea that being a quote unquote show off was bad. It was mean. It was conceited. It made other people feel bad about themselves. Other people are going to think you're rude. Other people are going to think that you are being a horrible person. It is just a horrible thing to be. This is what I had in mind from a young age. I remember looking at other kids whom I thought were quote unquote showing off, and it would annoy me. It would make me seethe to see these people just blatantly showing off and bragging and acting like they're better than the rest of us. And I thought, this is horrible. It is the worst thing in the world. And I never, ever want to be like that kind of person. So I lived in fear of doing anything that would remotely come off as me showing off or seeming like I think that I'm better than anyone else. And so when I was growing up, I was exceptionally good at creative writing. And so in elementary school, my teachers would tend to read my pieces, my writing pieces, to the class as an example. And I remember feeling so good and elated and recognized when my teachers did this, because I felt so inadequate and not good enough in pretty much every other area of my life. But at the same time, it gave me so much anxiety and fear because I was so afraid that I would come off as a show off because my teacher is giving me this recognition. So as my teacher would be reading the paper, I would be shrinking in my seat. I would just look around nervously at all the other kids' expressions and nervously seeing, oh my God, are they feeling uncomfortable? Do they think that I think I'm better than them? I need to make a big deal to act like I am embarrassed by this and that I think that they're all wonderful as well. And I'm going to go out of my way to compliment them on their work. And I'm going to shrink down and make sure that they see that I am not showing off or conceited in any way. And I remember thinking after I went home and I was just at home by myself, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I am so worried about how they feel about me. I had this anxiety and I felt so bad about myself, even though I really wanted to feel good about myself. I felt bad for wanting to feel good, for wanting to be recognized, for having something of note. Also, in one of my earlier relationships, I was very insecure about my looks, about my skin. I had a lot of acne scars. I felt unattractive in my style. I felt like my looks just weren't up to par. And so I wanted to get into learning how to do better makeup and how to dress better and how to be a little bit more stylish so I'd feel better about myself. But at the same time, I was terrified at becoming the so-called bad person in my head who is into the style and is into the makeup, and they're a show-off. This is my judgment of them, because they're going through life thinking they look so good and that they're better than others. And so while I wanted to improve my looks, I at the same time was terrified of doing so because I was living in fear of what I didn't want to be, of the kind of person I did not want to be. So I remember that I was with a high school boyfriend and we were sitting at the park near my house and just hanging out in the full sunshine. And I guess I had some pretty poorly done foundation on to just cover my discoloration on my acne scars. And he looked at me and he said in a very innocent and curious way, "Oh, are you wearing makeup?" And I remember just being so horrified because, for one, I was thinking, oh my God, he can tell, he can see it. I thought that it looked totally natural when I put it on in the dim bathroom lighting. And secondly, I thought, oh no, if he knows that I'm wearing makeup, that automatically is going to make me seem in his eyes as one of those girls who is all about her looks and just wants to look better than everybody else. And he's going to judge me and I'm going to be seen as this horrible person. And I do not want to be seen as this person. And so I got really uptight. I got really upset and I said, no. I said, no, I am not wearing makeup. And then I got moody and weird afterwards because I knew that he knew that I was lying and I didn't want to tell him anything more. And I felt so insecure and upset that he noticed and he could tell that something was wrong. I didn't want to tell him what was wrong. And I just made things really problematic and weird for no reason. And this was all because I did not want to come off as this person who I thought was bad in my mind. It was because I was living in fear of what I did not want to be. And this shows up in so many different ways in my clients. There was one guy that I was working with who was living in fear of this idea in his head of being a mean person. He had it in his mind that the moment that he said no to anybody, he would become this angry, stern, mean, unloving person. And he lived in fear of that. And so when you looked at his life from the outside, he was just exhausting himself, bending over backwards for exes and coworkers and bosses and his siblings. And he was just ruining himself because he was unable to tell anybody no, that the moment somebody needed him, he would go and bend over backwards for them. And he was in such rough shape, but it was because the thought of him setting boundaries, standing up for himself, saying no, automatically made him think of this image in his mind of what he did not want to be, which was this so-called mean person who was just angry and mean all the time. And so he was living in fear of being that. And similarly, other clients who are creative and expressive and want to show themselves more in their lives and on their online presence, but they are so afraid to post a selfie that they feel good about because they are afraid that if other people see them posting this photo that they feel good about themselves in, that is going to automatically turn them into what they think is the worst type of online person, where they're just showing off and doing it for attention and doing it for likes and not caring about anything else except for shallow things. And they're making other people feel uncomfortable and all these judgmental things. And so even though they want to show off their creations more, they want to show their life more, they want to show themselves more, even though they feel like they want to do that, they are preventing themselves from taking the first steps because they are living in fear of what they do not want to be, which is this so-called horrible influencer type that they have in their heads. And so even though they want to feel good about themselves, they feel bad about wanting to feel good about themselves and thus repress themselves because of this image in their head of what they don't want to be. So I want you to think about it in your own life, in your own way. Are you afraid to express yourself or stand up for yourself or show yourself or believe in and love yourself because you are afraid of what you don't want to be? Because you are worrying about it making you somehow into this bad person that you always are afraid of being, and that you are, unbeknownst to you up until now, living in fear of becoming if you start doing these things that will actually make you feel more expressed and full and loving and respectful of yourself. And this is so important to recognize because we do not want to be living in fear. We don't want to use fear as a blockage to getting to experience a higher version of ourselves, from ever getting a chance to experience what it's like to love and express and be and enjoy being yourself. It is not creative to be living in fear. You're just hiding in a cave, looking out, wishing that you could be out of the cave, but you're living in fear because you think you're going to turn into somebody awful. We want to create a better life for ourselves. We want to create a better situation in our relationships. We want to create a better version of ourselves that we actually love being. But when we are living in fear of what we might become, what we don't want to become, we never become anything more, and we feel stuck in this cave. And so the antidote to this fear of what you don't want to be is to start thinking about what you do want to be in this situation. And I did talk about this in episode 25, but I'm just giving a little background spin on this to really get it into our brains because this is such a key piece. So many of us are going through life only knowing what we do not want to be. And then we don't know what we do want to be. When I ask clients, okay, so you do not want to be like that kind of person. Well, then what do you want to be like? And then they have to really stop and think. Because this is the creative process. When you are creating a new version of yourself, you actually have to stop and think about what you do want to create. If you're only thinking about what you do not want, you're not going to create anything. So who do you do want to be for this? And so when it came to the makeup situation that I had going on, I realized that I did want to be somebody who was into makeup and style and looking good and putting her best foot forward. But it was in a way that was for herself primarily because it made her feel good. I didn't want to do it in some selfish, oh, look at me, I'm so great kind of way. I wanted to do it from a place of this is self-love. This is self-care. This is me expressing the version of myself that I want to see in the world of myself. And so when I saw it in that way, I saw that it doesn't have to be automatically this bad thing that I do not want to be. I can create it the way that I want to be. So I can wear the makeup and I don't want to be ashamed of wearing the makeup. That's another thing that I wanted to create, is that I wanted to create the version of myself who was fine with wearing the makeup and saying, yes, boyfriend, I am wearing makeup because I want to put my best foot forward for you, yes, but also for me, because I feel like this is loving. I feel like this is who I want to be more in life. And it is not so much as what I am doing, but how I'm doing it, who I'm being while I'm doing it. And so I got to decide who I wanted to be while I'm doing it, what I do want to be while I'm doing it. And that became the goal. That is what I began to focus on more of what I did want to be and who I did want to become, instead of all the fear of the don'ts of, oh, I don't want to be this person. When I began to focus on who I did want to be when it came to the looks and the makeup, I was so much happier with myself. I felt so much more aligned with myself because I was choosing to be more of who I did want to be. Same with my client who was so terrified of being mean. It took a while. I had to ask him, hey, do you know of somebody who is not mean, but who also has boundaries and who says no and is discretionary of what he does for other people? And so he thought about it and he came up with a few people that he did admire. And I said, okay, so when you think of this person that you do admire, would they still be a kind person when they're saying no? Is it possible to say no and still be a good person that other people see as good and that they feel like they are being good and loving? And he said, okay, yes, I do want to be more of that. And so we stopped focusing so much on the fear of being mean, and we focused all on how he did want to say no, on who he did want to be in this situation. And that changed everything. Same with the social media, artsy, expressive people who wanted to show up more online and in life. And we focused on, are there influencers? Are there people who are putting themselves out there that you do admire because you like them? That they can post selfies of themselves or their work or what they're working on and details of their life, but you feel like they are not the worst kind of people and you do admire and like them because you feel like they are wholehearted, kind, giving, good people who are coming from a good place. And when they thought about it, they could come up with a whole bunch of good examples that they did want to be. They were like, you're right. There are these people that I follow that I admire, and I don't think that they're bad people for posting cute selfies. I don't judge them for showing their work. In fact, I want to be more like them. And I said, okay, so this is what we need to focus on, is what you do want to be more of, that you get to choose what you do want to be. And when you choose what you do want to be, you are not going to become what you don't want to be, but you are going to become of what you do want to be. Versus if you only focus on the don'ts, you're not going to become anything. Okay? So do you see the difference and the importance of choosing what you do want to be more of in your life and to start focusing on that more than the do nots? And this goes for any situation. It could be as niche of a situation as you can imagine. We often make decisions about certain situations and events based on who we are afraid of being if we don't say yes, or if we do say yes, or whatever. Instead of focusing on who you are afraid of being, focus on who you do want to be. You can mix and match different qualities. I understand now that I could show up showing myself without being a show off, and that I don't have to stay hidden and afraid, because I do know that I can create myself and do the things I do want to do in a way that I know is me. I'm doing it in a way that makes me feel good. So this is all to say that you get to decide. You get to create the kind of person that you want to be. And what you need to do in order to create that person is to know what you do want to be. instead of just living in fear and focusing on what you think is the bad person that you might become if you start doing more of what you want. Okay, there is freedom in this. There is creativity in this. There is self-love and understanding in this when you start to see what you do want instead of just focusing on the negative. Okay, so go forth this week and focus on the do's. What do you want to be more of? What do you want to be actually doing in your life? And how do you want to be doing it? Who do you want to be while you are doing these things? Because it's up to you to decide. You get to create it. Okay, have a very creative and do-worthy week, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.